speaking in happier times in the sense that most of the issues which had come in the way of the company performing to its full potential in the past were absent during this quarter particularly, and largely during this half, although part of the first half was affected. But now we feel that we are now in more normal circumstances, and that the economy, despite what's happening globally, in India, we're in a good position and things are moving along as they should. One manifestation of this is the fact that our quarterly results, as you would have seen, are the best that we have ever had. In terms of turnover or profits or margins, I think we are all in very good condition there. It's a quarterly result, so it's not a result which you should extrapolate for the year or 2 years or anything like that. It's what it is exactly set out to be. It's a quarterly result. The important highlights of this period is the fact that we have, during this half year, crossed the 1 million mark. We had been waiting for this to happen earlier, but various factors had come in the way. This semiconductor crisis, mostly responsible. It had set back our things because we had hoped to get to 2 million much earlier. But now that we've crossed 1 million in the first half, the probability of crossing 2 million during the year is very, very high now. We are looking forward, and we hope that during this year we will get to that landmark and be the first company in India to get to a 2 million production in 1 year. That's one thing. The other changes which have happened as a result of events here is noticeable changes. One is that because of the semiconductor crisis not affecting us anymore now, we have been able to reduce our waiting list from, at one time, it was close to 400,000 cars. We think that by the end of this month, October, we will be somewhere around 2.15 lakh cars only, almost half of what we used to. That's one major change which has happened. And second thing is the jump which has been witnessed in the production and sale of CNG vehicles from Maruti. Our penetration of CNG has gone up 4% in 1 year, from 20% last year to 24% this year. I think that's a very major change which is happening in the market. It shows the customer thinking and what customers are looking for. At the same time, the market for the entry-level cars has not at all improved. In fact, in this quarter, if anything, it has gone down quite significantly. I am still of the view, which I think I've expressed once earlier, that I expect that given the kind of demographics we have and the kind of consumers we have in India, the fact that there are 150, 180 million two-wheeler users in India, the demand for entry-level small cars has to come back. I believe that if the prices of cars stop increasing rapidly as they have in the past because of regulatory and other changes, and that income levels in India grow, we are now the fastest growing economy. We are growing between 6 and 7% even this year when the rest of the world is in a lot of problems. And given this kind of growth rate, I expect that the affordability factor, which was in the past the reason for small car sales going down, that factor is going to gradually get eroded. And in the next maybe 2 or 3 years, we will find that people once again will be able to afford a small car and the market will gradually come back. The importance of small cars coming back is that without growth at the entry level and the small car market in a market like India's, sustained very decent high levels of growth in the car industry are very, very unlikely. This year, the growth of the competition we expect is going to be around 5.5%. That's the latest projections I've been given, that the industry expects a 5.5% growth. Maruti itself will hopefully grow at around a figure of around 10% or so. And we will reach a corresponding figure against last year's 16.4 or something, which we sold in the domestic market. We will be over 18 lakh units this year. So we will be growing better than the industry this year, which is only making up for what we have lost in the past. And it's nothing very exceptional. We will still be below our 50% market share or anything like that. So it's not that something extraordinary is happening. But I'm also told that industry is not very optimistic about the next year. And the growth projections for next year are virtually at stagnation levels. And I think that partly at least is a result of the fact that there has been degrowth, in fact, in the small car segment, and India needs that segment to grow. So that is really how the industry is looking for the future. All our projects are on schedule. The Kharkhoda work is carrying on. The selection of the second site for the 1 million expansion is is a work in progress, if I may put it. And the end of the financial year is our target for getting possession of the land so that we can start work in the next financial year. The EV program is as per schedule, what we've announced. We will start production in 24-25, and we will have the program for having 6 models by 30-31 remains intact. There's no change in any of those areas. Exports this year will be at about roughly the same level as last year. This growth in exports will happen afterwards. This year, we couldn't really grow more because there is still not that much available capacity in Maruti to have any significant increase in the export volumes. Having said that, what else do I need to talk about? The rural market continues to be in a reasonably good shape. It's growing slightly faster than the urban market. They are both roughly around 10%, but the rural market is over 11%. The urban market is a little bit below 10%, but not too much difference between the two. And I think that shows a healthy state of the economy and the healthy state of the market. And I think we are quite happy with this kind of more or less even growth between urban and rural markets. And I hope that this system continues. The project which we had announced last time of buying SMG is on schedule. As you know, the postal ballot has already started and will continue and end on the 17th of November, after which, of course, the results will be made available. And then in due course, this whole process of amalgamation and reorganization, all that will start. I think these are the overall general comments I wanted to make to you. And if Takeuchi-san would like to add a few comments, please do so. Otherwise, we'll move on to questions.
Yeah, we can move on to questions.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So now we will open the forum for the Q&A session. Our first question is from Shelly Seth from Economic Times. I would like to request Shelly to unmute your line and ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Shaili.
Congratulations for a very good set of numbers, sir.
Thank you.
Wanted to understand, we've seen a steep fall in the small car segment, like you also mentioned in your opening remarks. And at the same time, we have seen a very sharp growth in the SUV segment. So do you think it's a sort of a blessing in disguise for the company, and this will usher Maruti to a new margin trajectory, if I may say so?
Not at all. As I just said in my opening remarks also, I believe that a growth in the small car entry-level market is an essential requirement for the sustained growth of the car industry in India. Future customers for SUVs or sedans or anything will only largely come from people who have gone up from the entry-level things. We will not get large numbers of new entrants into a segment which is 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. So I believe that for the long-term health of the Indian car industry, revival of the small car segment is important, and I believe it will happen as we go along. It may take a couple of years or so, but it will happen.
Thank you, sir. I'll come back in the queue for more questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Shelly. I will now request Deepak Patel from Business Standard to come forward and ask his question.
Hello, sir. Sir, I have a question, not related exactly to the results, but the announcement that was done earlier this month about the capex plan of the company. It mentioned that 1.25 lakh crore will be spent till FY31. So 45,000 crore of that amount is for the building of plants. Can you elaborate on the plans on how you want to spend the remaining 80,000 crore till FY31?
Ajay, are we giving details of the future in capex plans or?
Yes, we have talked about the number in the presentation, so the details will be shared as we go along. We haven't shared specific details.
Yeah, Deepak, I think these are broad numbers. Even this 45,000 crores, which we say of 2025 for a million units, doesn't mean that this investment has actually been approved by the board or that we know how much is going to be spent in which year. It's an overall estimate of what is likely to be spent in areas which will have to grow if Maruti is going to complete what we call Maruti 3.0, if we're going to get up to total production of 4 million, a domestic sale of about 3.2, 3.3 million, export of 7 to 800,000 cars, all this infrastructure which will be required to sell and export these cars, the production system modifications which will be required to give us flexibility, any other supporting infrastructure which may need to be built. For example, we are at the moment just starting a study to see to what extent we can replace the use of CNG in our plants, which we use for the painting ovens and which we use for electricity generation and things, by biogas, what investment we'll have to make for biogas production, various things have to be happen. So these are all items which will in due course happen, which will be considered by the board and specific capex is approved for them. I don't think at this stage we can say that for the next 8 years, these are the investments we are going to actually make. It can't happen.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepak. So next we have Shrishti Sharma from ET Now. Shrishti, may please come forward and ask your question.
Yes, Rafi, am I audible?
Yes, you're
Yes,
audible.
please.
Okay. Hi, Bhargava sir. Thank you so much for your time and congratulations on a great set of
Thank you.
numbers, way above the street estimates. Sir, you have talked a lot about, and thank you for giving us the outlook on the small car segment. I wanted to know Maruti Suzuki's plan on export side, sir, because the company has been setting up new plants. The exports are already at a record high, but with the size of Maruti Suzuki, so maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, how major chunk in terms of exports you are seeing for the company? What could be the game plan over there, and which market do you believe that Maruti Suzuki can go ahead and that could be beneficial for the company?
See, as we have said earlier, that by 2031, our plan is to go up to an export of 750 to 800,000 cars. Our markets are essentially in Africa, Middle East, South America, and parts of Southeast Asia. We think that because of the variety of cars we have in India, that we will have a mixture of various technologies in India, and that we will have a very thriving component industry which will support these cars. We will be in a position to make cars which are highly competitive and which will or can be made for different markets in all these geographies which I have mentioned. We also have, as you know, I've mentioned this earlier, the support of Toyota in the export markets, that some of these models which Toyota does not make, they are sourcing from Maruti, and the Toyota channels are being used to market these vehicles. So with all of these things happening, we think that we will be able to speedily step up the volume of exports. If any more details on this are required, maybe Takitu-san or somebody would like to add to what I've said on the export side.
Yeah, as already Bhargava mentioned that we jumped up our export from 2021. Before that, our export numbers has been around 100,000 units, but last 2 years seeing 240,000 units. On the last year was 259,000 units, and this big jump is because we increased our sales in every destinations like Bhargava-san just mentioned. But out of that, the specific increase is happening in Africa. Our export to Africa, jumped up drastically, and I think that trend will continue. So African market will be very important market for us, and also South America is also a very promising market for us. So that's what I just like to add to what Bhargava-san mentioned. Thank you.
Understand.
you,
Thank
sir.
you so much. May I just add one more?
If you don't mind, we'll come back to you for
Yeah.
your question.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to invite Ketan from Autocar Professional. Ketan, you may please go ahead. Ketan, you will have to unmute yourself.
For the noise in the background.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to understand with regards to the upcoming. Just give me a moment, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to understand the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has called for a meeting to announce the CAFE results. Maruti Suzuki has been pretty good on the CAFE front. But help me understand, if you've heard anything on the CAFE penalties, whether they'll be decided, and what's your position on penalties as a company?
Takir-san, As far as I know,
Okay.
we are fully compliant and ahead of the CAFE norm, but Takir-san is better equipped to answer this.
Okay, I will ask Rahul to respond to this question.
Ketan, as you have rightly mentioned, and as Chairman also mentioned, Maruti Suzuki has the least CO2 emission among, as a weighted average of the whole fleet among all car manufacturers in India. And even this year, we believe with the release, we will be the least in CO2. There is a law on some rules that have been announced, but exactly how they will be implemented is not very clear. We would, of course, participate and support the government in whichever way. And of course, we are totally compliant. Our numbers are well within the targets. And we just hope that whatever policy is announced is a comprehensive long-term policy.
Any word on the improvement on CAFE numbers at your end?
Last year, we were at 111 grams per kilometer of Maruti. This year, we believe we should be below 106. We should be more like 105 grams per kilometer.
All right, I'll come back in the queue.
Thanks, Ketan. Our next question is from Alisha. Alisha, please go ahead.
Congratulations, everyone, for a fantastic quarter.
That's not loud enough. Sorry.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Congratulations, sir, firstly, for a great
Thank
quarter. I wanted to ask, since you referred to, the expectation of a fairly stagnant year next year for passenger vehicles, does Maruti Suzuki still continue to outperform and then look at significant market share gains? And will this also come on the back of improvement in small cars? Will we start seeing that next year onwards? Yeah, that's it.
I don't think the improvement in the small car market is going to happen that quickly. I think it will take some more time because the affordability of these cars changed drastically because of the various changes which happened. And next year, we expect that our growth will continue. I don't think we have a figure yet of what we expect next year. It's too early. The board has to consider next year's figures and come up with what we think will happen next year. But unlike the overall industry, which thinks that next year there will be a flat kind of situation, we are not that pessimistic. We think that next year there will be positive growth. What the number is, I'm afraid, at least I'm not willing to hazard a guess on what next year's growth will be till such time as this has been considered by the board in the company later in the year when we start dealing with next year's targets and budgets and things. Is there something else you wanted?
Sure, sir. If you could also speak to your alliance with Toyota here. You touched upon it, with reference to exports, but even in the domestic market. So how do you see over the longer period of time your alliance develop? Globally, they do have, they express a lot more, than Suzuki does, and India being such a key market for Suzuki. Do you see that there is more that will happen, with that alliance in India?
Alisha, let me first again clarify that there is no alliance between Maruti and Toyota.
Sure, sir.
The partnership is between Suzuki Japan and Toyota Japan. As a part of that alliance, what the partnership in Japan, we have a system under that thing which permits Toyota and Maruti Suzuki to exchange components and products. And that is what is happening in India. We are making and giving products to Toyota. They are making, giving products to us. We are cooperating in the export market together. That is the kind of cooperation, but we do not have any direct partnership or arrangement with Toyota and Maruti.
I understand. I understand that, sir. But as part of that global arrangement itself, because Suzuki, because India is so key for Suzuki, and the arrangement here has, well, whether it's for Toyota or for Suzuki, is there a case, sir, to deepen those ties further, keeping India in mind?
It's an arrangement between Suzuki and Toyota. Any deepening or any change in that arrangement has to be done in Japan by the two concerned parties. We are not involved.
All right, sir. So just as a last word on, hybrids, then I think in your 2030 vision, BEV is around 50% of your sales. And I think the industry estimate to that effect is a bit on the higher side, right? They talk about 20 to 30% also. Your bet is larger on hybrids. But so how does that come together with your 50% market share target, when the industry volumes towards EVs would be higher and you are only looking at about 15%? So then where does that volume come from, sir?
We do think that hybrids are going to play even a larger role. I'm not sure how many of you are actually aware of the fact that if you look at the total carbon emission of an EV and of a hybrid car, from the well to the wheel, as they say, which means that including the carbon emission which takes place when electricity is generated, India today has almost 75% of energy which is generated by coal-fired thermal stations. This 70% is going to come down gradually. I believe there is some projection which government has put out that this will come down to around 50% by 31 or so. But at 75%, the figures can be made available to anybody who's interested. The hybrids carbon emission in the environment. And we believe that the market in India also is preferring hybrids to EVs. In the first half of this year, the difference between the number of hybrids sold and the number of EVs sold was was about 1%. Shashank?
Sir, 0.7.
0.7%. In the second half, this gap is narrowing further, and the two numbers are almost coming together. The difference is how much? 0.2, 0.3%? Something like that.
Yeah, 0.3.
0.3%. The reason is that for various reasons, which there's no time to go into that, customers are quite happy with the performance and the convenience of a hybrid compared to what they perceive are some of the problems for some of the customers for EVs because of infrastructure and range and various other issues. There is still the possibility that government today, having accepted the fact that all technologies are required, they will also recognize the fact that the hybrid technology is actually, at least for the next 8-10 years, a cleaner technology than EVs is in Indian conditions. And given that situation, they may then say that why should there be a 38% difference in GST between hybrids and EVs? If that happens, the growth of the hybrids will be even faster. So let's wait and see what happens. There's a lot of time between now and 2030, and many changes can happen in this period.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Sure. So next we have Danish Anand from CNBC 18. Danish, please, may I please ask your question?
And thank you for giving me this opportunity. So we are seeing that the company has had a great quarter this time. As far as the sale and the demand is concerned, do you think that this demand is there to stay post the festive period is over?
As I said, the demand from the projections of the industry seems to be slowing down for the next year. And that is consistent with my thinking that sustained demand over a period of time in India requires the small car market to revive. I believe that it's not going to happen next year. I think it'll take 2 or 3 years before the small car market begins to revive. But something has to happen in that segment because if the small car market does not revive and remains like what it is today, I don't think long-term sustained growth at even 6 or 7% a year will be possible.
Right. As far as the EV plans are concerned, you said that your plan is on track. So how soon can we expect the first EV by Maruti to get rolled out?
24, 25 is our what we have been saying for the last year and a half or 2 years. We are on target.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite Anasuya ma'am from Telegraph. Ma'am, may please ask your question to the management.
Hello, Bhargava-san. This is
Good
Anasuya from
afternoon.
the Telegraph in Calcutta.
Yes.
So I just wanted to take off again on that statement that you said that demand is going to peter off next year. Is this a cyclical thing that we are seeing in the industry? Or, we've continuously heard of, best ever quarters, best ever half years, and best ever annual figures. So,
Anusya, let me clarify that next year's demand being low is not my projection. It's what the industry is reported to have projected for next year. It's
so
not
what do you
my-
think are the factors, Bhargav-san, if you could tell us?
See, the positive factors are that the economy is continuing to grow. And an economy which grows at around 7% a year should have growth of the car market.
Right.
But the fact that our market has got a little bit distorted because of the disproportionate impact of regulatory changes on small car versus big cars, we have this situation where the small car buyer has had to postpone his buying decisions because he could not afford the higher price of the small cars at this point of time. Now, I'm only speculating on how much time it will take a small buyer to get over this affordability hurdle and again reach the point where he is able to afford a small car. I think the growth rates of the industry will pick up at that point of time. I'm not at all certain that I agree with the industry forecast that next year will be zero growth of the car market. It's a figure which I have seen, which I've heard, but I'm not saying that I am in full agreement with this figure.
Right, sir. And the other thing that I wanted to know from you, Bhargav-san, is that, you are saying that hybrids are cleaner than BEVs. And this has been kind of, on and off, expressed by various other industry people as well. But the government seems to be of another, their policies seem to kind of suggest that they want a clean transition and a very quick transition to BEVs. Do you think that in the forthcoming year we will see some relief for hybrid cars from the government?
I can only hope for it. But please note the fact that government has also said that they think that a mixture of technologies will be required to achieve the carbon neutrality goals in India. And besides EVs, hybrids and biofuels and CNG have all been mentioned. It's not
Yes,
that
that would
government,
be.
what you're talking about, the sole dependence on EVs was earlier in times. In recent times, I think the government has recognized the importance of other technologies in the Indian market also.
Right. Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I would like to invite Srinjoy from Mobility Outlook. Srinjoy, may I please ask your question?
Am I audible?
Yes,
Good evening, Bhagasan.
good afternoon.
So I just wanted to understand, like as you mentioned, in the next 2-3 years, the entry level vehicles won't come back to the market, right? The growth will happen. So I just wanted to understand, do you see that growth happening with the shape and form that the current vehicles are being offered with, or do you see a new trend in that segment coming in?
I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, I mean. What exactly do you mean by this new trend or whatever?
I mean, so there's a trend for SUVs. So do you see the entry level SUV picking up the
I
growth
don't
for-
think you can have an entry level SUV in the sense of a car costing 5 lakhs, which is an SUV. I mean, at least I don't think so. I don't know if some engineers will be able to devise an SUV-looking car. Shashank, any prospects of that happening?
So some of the small cars from the outside design, OEMs have tried to make them look like SUVs. But real SUVs obviously are probably not possible at those price points.
Prices. The shape of the cars will be altered. I'm sure new models will come and new models will be differently shaped. What shape I can't predict. But the designers always try and see what the customer wants and try to make a car which adapts to customer needs.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Aman Ahmed. Please come forward and ask your question. If possible, you can switch on your video, please.
Good afternoon, Bhagasan. My question is regarding the small car market. Like you mentioned, in the near term, it's probably not going to recover in the way that it should. But being the dominant force in that segment, what is Maruti planning to do to revive interest once again? Is there a way to make these models more affordable by perhaps adopting more cost-efficient manufacturing technologies? Do you see a scope to add more models there, perhaps?
So Maruti has always tried to minimize all its costs of production. I think we have been the most frugal manufacturer, certainly in India, and I dare say in most parts of the world. You will not find car companies anywhere, Aman, which are more conscious of the need to cut costs. Suzuki-san, from the time we started this partnership, he is actually the master of cost cutting. I haven't seen a company like Suzuki's or a person like Osamu Suzuki who is so much conscious of cutting even 1 yen of part. He's that conscious. We think that 1 yen mein kya hoega? Ek paisa hai. But he also save even that 1 paisa. So we are always looking to make as cheap a car, as low cost a car as possible. And I think our products have been well accepted in the Indian market because for the price which customers have paid for them, they have given very good value. And we will continue with that, but I don't think there is much scope for us to substantially decrease the price of the small car. An attempt was made with by a car maker to make a low-cost small car. It didn't succeed. And at that time, even Maruti had said that we were asked this question that if X can do this, why can't you? And we had said, I'm sorry, but we just don't have the know-how to make a car as low cost as 1 lakh.
Right. But then what I was trying to get at was, is there a way for you to mitigate the challenges by perhaps introducing new models? Because you've also got...
new models will not be cheaper, no?
Right.
What is required is the customer's purchasing power being restored, which can only happen if per capita incomes go up and the cost of the car does not go up, which means the impact of new regulatory forces should not again push up the cost of small cars. Whereas the growth of the economy and of GDP and per capita income should gradually increase the purchasing power of the bulk of the people in this who are car buyers. That will take care of this erosion of the purchasing power which has happened in the last 3-4 years.
Right.
There's no other way. Short of government cutting taxes, which I don't see happening, the only other way is for incomes to go up faster than the cost of the car has gone up.
Right. And I noticed that your numbers to Toyota, sales to Toyota are down. Just want to understand if there is a plan to send out more models in this financial year to Toyota from Maruti side.
We are selling 2 models to Toyota just now.
Sir, H1 में 28,591 vehicles have been sent.
But there were 2 models, no?
Yes, sir. So actually, the reduction which he's referring to happened because of the Brezza, which we have discontinued to Toyota. Last year, H1 was 22,084. This year, we had sent it only in 1 month, so it is 4,700.
Thank you, Aman. I think this answers your question. Now I would like to invite Swaraj from Financial Express.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Bhargav sir, I wanted to take your opinion on something that the former chairman and CEO of Toyota Corporation said. I think it was yesterday, where Akio Toyoda-san had said that people are finally seeing the reality of EVs. He was probably referring to the global slowdown in EV numbers and EV demand. Also, now that Maruti is preparing for entry into EVs, in your view, is the market still unmatured for a mass scale adoption of EVs, especially since there is no monetary incentive directly coming from the government to the final buyer? What is your opinion on all that?
No, there is a huge financial incentive from the government to the buyer. If you're charging a GST of 5%, where even a small car pays 28%, there is a huge financial incentive. So firstly, your assumption that there is no financial incentive for EVs is not correct. This is in addition to the incentives which various state governments are giving in terms of road tax exemptions and various other kinds of exemptions. So the incentives are very much there. But Swaraj, I'll remind you that I think consistently Maruti has been saying that 100% penetration of EVs in India is not a realistic plan for a long, long time to come. With our kind of purchasing power, with our kind of distribution of vehicles, with our kind of per capita incomes in this country, the idea that 100% people will use electric cars in the next 10 years or 15 years is not realistic. Yes, there was a time when the government some years ago said that we want to get to 100% EVs by 2030 or 2035 or something. And there were votaries of that happening. I think what is the experience over these years is that it's not going to happen. Even today, the penetration of EVs in the market is a little over 2%.
Right, right.
You see the rate of penetration which is happening. What the chairman of Toyota said, I think reflects something which is happening in other parts of the world, not in India. But the fact is that in many parts of the world, people are finding that 100. So I think getting to the task, the object is not 100% EVs. The object is carbon neutrality. And one must decide in the circumstances of each country. And I'm saying this with all this, in the circumstances of each country, what is the appropriate mix of vehicles and technologies which will lead to the desired result. And I believe that India's solutions will not be the same solutions as, say, for Europe. We'll have to have different solutions. And I think that's where the challenge is going to come, to find the correct and appropriate solutions for the Indian market, which are specific to the Indian market.
And sir, have we finalized on the fourth location of the fourth plant?
I mentioned that we will finalize this location before the end of this financial year.
Okay, got it, sir. Got it. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Sir, we have crossed the time limit for today's press conference. If you're comfortable and if you have little time, maybe take 3 more questions.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So now I would like to request Varun from India Today. Varun, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Varun, you are.
Hello, sir. Congratulations on the great results. I have just one question. You said that, for the car market to grow, the entry-level car segment will have to grow. Sir, a lot of OEMs are moving out of this segment. At the beginning of FY24, we saw Maruti discontinuing the Alto 800. There is no 800cc car sold in India now. In such circumstances, like when no other OEM has plans to launch entry level cars, how do you think this segment is going to grow?
We are still in a position to manufacture the entry level cars and in large numbers. We were always the dominant player in this segment. There were other players, but they were small players comparatively. And we are still there. We can always ramp up the production of these vehicles. But the customer demand has to come back. The problem with us, we didn't discontinue or reduce the production of small cars because we wanted to reduce. The reduction happened because the market fell. There was no demand. So if the demand comes back, we will increase production.
Do you think, the government needs to incentivize this segment for the demand to grow? Something needs to be done with
I'm not sure how many things government can incentivize, frankly. Any product goes down. I think it's a matter of time. I believe that the purchasing power of the entry level, small customers, the guy who's upgrading from a two-wheeler will come back because of the various policies which the government is implementing and following. The economy is continuing to grow. The favorable factor which makes me optimistic is the fact that there is good economic growth in India. I believe economic growth will, over a period of time, erode the impact of regulatory and other things which increase the cost of small cars and again make them affordable.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varun. Now I invite Hanada San to kindly come forward and ask his question.
The news, sir. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes,
please.
Okay. I would like to ask about the general economic condition of India. It is obvious that Indian automobile sector has continuously expanded, and also it is expected to grow in mid-term and long-term. But when we see the national statistic, still the manufacturing sector accounts less than 20% of the Indian GDP, despite the India Making India initiative. As one of the largest manufacturer of India, what do you think of that reason why still the rate is remain low? And what is your projection in the mid-term future? Thank you.
No, I, of course, cannot make projections for manufacturing growth in India. Is not competent enough to do that. But amongst the things which I have been recommending for the Indian market, the central government has done, I think, everything which the central government really needed to do to make it easy to manufacture in India. But the interaction of any manufacturing entrepreneur in matters relating to manufacturing are minimal as far as the central government is concerned. He has much more interactions with the state government and with the state bureaucracy. But even with that, maybe 75 or 80% of the competitiveness of an industry depends on the management style of the entrepreneur. Governments cannot make manufacturing competitive. Governments cannot increase productivity. Governments cannot reduce cost of manufacturing. Governments cannot improve supply chains. These all are management functions. These are all functions which Maruti did when everybody said that India is the most difficult country to manufacture in. Remember, we started in 1983. That was the height of all the controls and regulations in India. But the management has to overcome some of these problems. So I think the conclusion after 40 years of Maruti is that the principles behind what Japan did in making their manufacturing competitive, which principles we adapted and adopted for Maruti, which made us so competitive. Those are the correct principles which need to be followed by Indian industry, private sector industry, which will make them far more competitive and therefore lead to faster growth. I do not think it is correct to blame government, to put this blame that if industry is not growing, something is wrong with the government. Yes, I think the state governments can become more industry friendly, most state governments. It's possible they can make things easier like the center has done. But more than that, I think the entrepreneurs themselves have to make changes in their management style and look at what Japan did and what Maruti did and what some other companies have done and change their style of function.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Another-san, thank you, sir. We have tried to answer as many questions as possible in today's session. With your kind permission, we may now close the session.
Okay, I am fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this session. We are now closing the press conference.